Yes, we comrades, we brothers and sisters. Welcome to this study on Patrice Lumumba and the African National Liberation Struggle. Today is the 18th of January. Today is the day of assassination. Well, yesterday, the 17th, was the day of the assassination of Patrice Lumumba with Polo and Okito. These three leaders were killed, were murdered by the alliance between United States government and the Belgian government with the African collaborators. They killed Patrice Lumumba, Maurice Polo, and Joseph Okito. They cut them into pieces and put them in a sulfur acid. And now, basically, up to this day, they have no burial. And Patrice Lumumba died with his comrades, just like Jacques Dessalines was murdered in Haiti. Jacques Dessalines, the heroic leader of African Revolution in Haiti, he was cut to pieces by those who opposed the revolution. And it's important for us to remember, to commemorate the day Patrice Lumumba was assassinated. And I would say for the first time since the murder of Patrice Lumumba, there have been demonstrations throughout the main cities in the Congo to commemorate Patrice Lumumba. I would say since the death of Pierre Mulele in 1968, we have not seen demonstrations throughout the Congo claiming Lumumba, showing by Lumumba, reading Lumumba's phrases and things like that. And also in Belgium, in France, in many cities, in Austria, Germany, there have been demonstrations by the Africans from Congo basically to commemorate the day of Patrice Lumumba. As I say, that's part of the changing world. That's part of the changing narrative basically in this world. And I will say the African People's Socialist Party played a key role in bringing, first in keeping the memory of Patrice Lumumba and bringing it back. And this is no small thing. So I just want to say that in the opening, I'm Luwezi Kinshasa. I'm the Secretary General of the African Socialist International, and the African Socialist International is the organization created by Chairman Omar Chela, which includes all the African People's Socialist Party, which also was created by Chairman Omar in 1972 in the United States. It's actually based in Florida. And the mission was, and basically the mission is to create the African People's Socialist Party everywhere Africans are located, because he already concluded that the African revolution everywhere has run into its limitation, and there was not going to be African liberation in one place. Basically, there won't be something like Senegalese freedom when the rest of Africans are catching hell. There won't be any freedom for Africans in South Africa where the rest of Africans are catching hell. So we're going to be free as a people. So the African Socialist International is the union of the whole African People's Socialist Party in the world. And I'll come back to that later on. So we want to welcome everyone to this study basically. The first thing I would like to say, I want us people to be clear. When we say African National Liberation Struggle, we're saying all black people must be free. And we're saying all black people struggle everywhere on the planet. Every struggle is part of the African National Liberation Struggle. We are one people. We are one nation, dispersed, scattered around the world, mostly because of the imperialist assault on Africa, which began in 1415. We're not saying Africa was not attacked before, but we're saying the attack that resulted in the creation of the world capitalist economy we have today. It started in 1415 when the Portuguese seized what we call Ceuta in Morocco. And from there, they went on year after year to attack the rest of Africa. And you can see the gap between 1415 and 1492 when they were able to go to America and steal America and create the entities we have today in different places in Americas. So there's a big gap. And we also want to say that when we say we are part of our African national liberation struggle, we want to make sure people understand that colonization of Africa didn't begin at the Berlin Conference. We really want people to be clear on that. It didn't begin there, because often when you speak to Africans, particularly on the continent, they seem to begin the oppression of Africans, at the Berlin Conference. The only thing you have to do is visit all these damn, what they call slave castles throughout West Africa and other places throughout Africa. You will see the oppression of Africa didn't begin in 1885. So it started before that. And we want Africans to understand that we are part of a continuum, one struggle. So what people refer to as slavery is colonialism, colonial slavery. It's really, really important for people to understand that. So Africans don't speak the word slavery, then colonialism. No, it was colonial slavery. And what they get colonialism, is colonialism, but I think the key difference is just that what they refer to as slavery was colonization before industrialization of Europe. So it's the colonial slavery that provided Europe with all the necessary capital to industrialize. The Europe that attacked Africa was not capitalist. It was a feudal Europe. So it's that imperialist attack, assault on Africa, that allowed Europe to get industrialized, that allowed the creation of what we call today capitalist world economy. And I just want people to be clear on that. Now, when we say colonization, is an assault, an attack on African and other colonized people around the world for the purpose of stealing their resources, stealing their labor. That's really important, because it will help us understand the significance of the struggles involved in the 60s, particularly around what we refer to as struggle for independence or political independence. When colonial attack or colonialism is an attack, is a process, a violent process to steal the resources, to steal the labor, to steal all the value from African oppressed people. Asia, the Americas, the Middle East, and so on, to steal the value produced by the people from those places. It's really material reality. It's no ideas, it's material reality. Steal resources, steal resources. So the struggle against colonialism has to reflect that, get back our resources. It has to reflect that. And that's really, it's very important. And I have just some examples to make sure people are clear when we say colonialism, when we say to loot, but also to destroy lives, to kill colonized people, to kill the people whose land the resources belong to. You can't have colonialism without genocide, without murder, because whenever you see Africans being attacked today, you have to understand where it came from, where it began. You have to realize who you are up to, and that's really fundamental. So what I'm looking at here is just something from Zbigniew Brzezinski, the former advisor to Jimmy Carter and Obama, and to the president of the U.S. This is the towards a global realignment, and he gives basically some figures just to give you an idea of colonial violence. So in the 16th century, due largely to disease brought by Spanish explorers, the population of the native Aztec Empire in present-day Mexico declined from 20 million to approximately 1 million. That's biological warfare to me. From 25 million to 1 million. Similarly, in North America, an estimated 90% of the native population died within the first 5 years of contact with European settlers, invaders basically, due primarily to diseases. In the 19th century, various wars and forced resettlements killed an additional 100,000. In India, from 1857 to 1867, the British are suspected of killing up to 1 million civilians in reprisals stemming from the Indian Rebellion of 1857. You can see people call themselves civilized, what they were up to. Colonialism is an enterprise of murder, of genocide. That's basically what this reading is revealing to us. So, and it goes on to say, the British East India Company's use of Indian agriculture to grow opium, then essentially forced on China, resulted in the premature death of millions, not including the directly inflicted Chinese casualties of the First and Second Opium Wars. In the Congo, which was the person holding of Belgian King Leopold II, 10 to 15 million people were killed between 1890 and 1910. In Vietnam, recent estimates suggest that between 1 and 3 million civilians were killed from 1955 to 1975. And I'll take one more example here. In Algeria, following a 15-year civil war from 1830 to 1845, French brutality, famine, well, colonial famine of course, and disease killed 1.5 million Algerians, nearly half of the population. In neighboring Libya, the Italian forced people there into concentration camps, where an estimated 80,000 to 500,000 died between 1927 and 1934. Just to give you an idea. That's colonialism. Because every time you listen to the press, to the news, the bourgeois news speaking about itself, they say democracies, democracies. No. Colonizers, imperialists, that's more correct. And that's really important. So this takes us to understand the context of the struggle that took place between in the late 50s and 60s that gave us Patrice Lumumba. And you have to realize this is the Second World War. And many African soldiers have been in wars in Europe and other places to defend their respective white colonizers. They have seen how Europe was destroyed. They have seen the weakening of Europe. They have seen Europeans being killed. They have seen the commanders ducking, war, avoiding to go to battles. They have seen all those things. But basically, the point is they have seen how Europe was weakened. They have seen it, and also they have seen the struggle for national liberation in India. 1947, the independence of India was a big event. They have seen the defeat of, they've seen the victory of the Chinese Revolution in 1949. That shook the world. But more than that, in 1954, the Vietnamese people have defeated the French army in Vietnam. And that defeat sent shock waves around the world, that the French army was defeated by an army of people who never been in any military academy. Peasants, under the leadership of Ho Chi Minh, were able to defeat the mighty French army. In 1955, the Algerian pick up, weapons to get the French out of Algeria. And that was a serious battle that broke nearly the back of French imperialism. That's what Fanon, for example, Frantz Fanon was asking African leaders to open up another front so we can break completely the back of French imperialism. You go to the Cuban Revolution, you have the Mao Mao, where the Huru word came from. They, basically immobilize British imperialism, that the British have to make a decision that they couldn't fight Nkrumah in Ghana and Dedan Kimathi in Kenya at the same time, and also fighting another counter-strategic warfare in Malaysia. They have to make choices. So they prefer to make concession in Ghana, to reform colonialism in Ghana. And basically, of course, you have the civil rights movement in the United States. So you have basically anti-colonial struggles everywhere. Revolutionary struggle becoming, increasingly the norm, the trend, as often the chairman said. So that's the situation. Lumumba came on the scene. But before Lumumba became the Lumumba we know, in 56, for example, there was you should keep the name of this guy. His name is Ileo, L-I-E-O. Ileo was part of what they call social democrat under the influence of Catholic Church. Catholic Church, with the colonial army, they call it the Force Publique. These two institutions were the most powerful institutions in the Congo. Most of the schools were dominated by the Catholic Church. If you went to school in the Congo, you most likely went to school, you got your education through the Catholic school. Even Lumumba himself also went through a Catholic church. So Ileo demanded independence. That's 1956. At that time, Lumumba was demanding what they call a Belgo-Congolese community. So basically, kind of integration of the elite, the African elite, into the Belgian colonial society. That's what the Portuguese refer to as assimilados. So that's what Lumumba was demanding. And there is another name I want you to remember. That's Kasavubu. Kasavubu was leading a ethnic and regional organization known as Abako, Organization of Bakongo. And he replied to Ileo, what we want is the immediate independence. That's 1956. So Lumumba is demanding the opposite. And it's very important, to see where it's coming from. And also, everyone, has been given a chance to change, to be transformed. And that's something Lumumba did. Because by 1958, in October 1958, it became clear that Lumumba's position has shifted. He started demanding independence. And then in December 1958, he went to Accra in Ghana. That's where he met Nkrumah. He met Fanon, all the African leaders of the time. They were there. He met with them. And that galvanized Lumumba, that he realized that his struggle is the same struggle Nkrumah and the other African leaders were involved in. And also that his demand for independence changed a little bit, where he used to say he wants Congo independence. Now he starts saying we want immediate and total independence. And they returned to Congo. And by the 28th of December, 3 weeks after he's been in Ghana, he made a speech. And that was the first mass meeting in the city of Kinshasa, where some 10,000 people attended, and they gave a report. And a week later, on the 4th of January, something happened that shook the Belgian colony of Congo, and change history forever. For whatever reasons, the Africans believed that the banning of, no, it wasn't a ban, they prevented Kasavubu to have a meeting on the 4th of January. And remember, Kasavubu is an ethnic and a regional leader. He is not fighting for the whole Congo to be free. He's fighting, his demand basically to have an autonomous region for his ethnic. So his meeting was banned. And you have to realize at the time, half of the population in State of Kinshasa belonged to Kasavubu ethnic group. So basically, you can say one of worker out of two was from Kasavubu's group, basically, ethnic group. So the fact the Belgians say your meeting will not go ahead, the people rebelled. And that was the first time the workers rebelled in mass. You go realize that before that, all the organizations in the Congo except Lumumba's organization were regional or ethnic organizations. Lumumba was the only one to have a national organization. So on the 4th of January, instead of having the African petit bourgeoisie, what they call them, the évolués, the assimilados, calling for meeting, calling for demonstration, no, the masses entered the scene, entered the arena on their own. And that shook the Belgian, because the Belgian had a policy. They used to say, no elite, no trouble. No educated people, no trouble. And the Belgian policy was that no Africans should have a high education. So secondary education was the most you can do. The seminary army, the highest grade you could attain was the grade of surgeon or sergeant. When you're a sergeant, that's it. You can't go higher than that. So the Belgians even were saying that they are ready to colonize Congo until 1985. So we are in 1959. So they, they say what's happening in Algeria, Vietnam, all these places will not happen in the Congo because there is no elite to run to organize the masses. So the 4th of January shook them completely, and they responded as you expect, just like in Shepherdville in South Africa. They used machine guns, grenades, everything you could think of. Yeah, so we had some technical difficulties. I think we should be live, should be back live on air now. So I was saying basically the 4th of January basically changed the history. The African workers entered the scene. Now, the Belgians have to realize, the whole imperialist world have to realize that what's happening in Congo, if they don't deal with it quickly, it might definitely be a new Algeria. And the Belgians were not prepared for that. And the Belgians came to the conclusion that it's better to make a concession now before the movement gets too radical, before Lumumba gets radicalized, before the masses get radicalized. They say we don't want another Algeria here in the middle of Africa. So they were confident that they can have a new solution which will allow Congo to continue to be a colony. And so the struggle for independence basically changed from that moment. And Lumumba became very quickly the leading organizer for national liberation struggle in the Congo. But what we need to realize that the emphasis was we have now to fight for political independence. And remember what I said in the beginning, colonialism is first of all an enterprise of looting, of stealing all our resources, all our value. Is also an enterprise for murder. So now the struggle in the Congo became a struggle for political independence. And basically, if the administration of the colony is given to the organization fighting for independence, then that will be a step they can use basically to fight for economic independence. So that was the understanding. You could speak to any leader, you will hear that that's what they're fighting for. And there is a reason for that. And I say Lumumba was influenced by Nkrumah greatly. And you know, Nkrumah strategy was that you have to mobilize the masses, and you have to win electoral contests. You have to have power through parliaments. You have to be non-violent. And the Nkrumah did that in Ghana. He won all the elections. He had the majority in the parliament. He had what they call political power. But the economy remained in the hands of the bourgeoisie, of the imperialist bourgeoisie. And also the army, the state, remained in the hands of the bourgeoisie. Because the strategy of Nkrumah was a strategy that was drafted, that came straight from the Pan-Africanist conference that took place in Manchester in 1945. So the struggle from that perspective was influenced greatly by Dubois and Padmore. And you know, Dubois was opposed to Marcus Garvey. And you know, Padmore was opposed to Marcus Garvey. And clearly, the struggle was for political power, with our economic power, with our state power. That's concrete manifestation of Pan-Africanism as expressed through the work of Dubois, Padmore, and influenced Kwame Nkrumah. That's the reality. That's what Lumumba fought for. So, at the Independence Day on the 30th of June, the Belgian king gave a speech. And that speech was an insulting speech. Kasavubu also gave a speech. It was a servile speech, a sellout speech. And you all know Lumumba rose up, went to the podium, took the mic, and replied. Because the independence was negotiated. The Belgian and the African leadership of the African petty bourgeoisie negotiated independence, which was around the political power. Basically, who should be in charge of the colonial administration? Where it used to be the white colonial governor, now it's going to be the African, it's going to be the prime minister. And between the elections and the time the Belgian conceded independence, Lumumba has continued to develop. He went to power, just like Nkrumah, not as an individual. He went to power as the national movement of Congolese, MNC. Just like Nkrumah went to power as the Convention People's Party. He didn't go to power as Nkrumah, he went to power as a group, as a class. And that class, Nkrumah was the best representative. But Nkrumah continued to develop. So is Lumumba. And it became clear to Lumumba that with this independence, the masses will not benefit. It will be independence for his class, for the assimilados, for the African petty bourgeoisie, who was fighting against discrimination, who was fighting against basically the consequences of colonialism, as opposed to destroying colonialism. And that is a key component of the contradiction that exploded in the Congo. So you had the workers, the peasants, who trusted Lumumba. And Lumumba who increasingly realized that he is a product of the workers and peasants. So he began to refuse any compromise that will maintain economic exploitation, which is the basis of colonialism. It's an economic enterprise of looting and murder of Africans and other oppressed people around the world. He refused to go along with that. by doing that, he was in contradiction with the rest of the African petit bourgeoisie. Remember the explanation given to the people. They say he's a communist. Lumumba never made the decision to be a communist. You know, when he was asked the question, you know, that probably when he lost power, I think. But that's another story. But the question, the point for us is that he's in contradiction with his own class, the African petit bourgeoisie. But he's also in contradiction with the imperialist bourgeoisie. Because they begin to see his positions are consistent with the interests of the African working class and the poor peasants. His positions are consistent with the overall national liberation struggle. Lumumba begins to say the struggle for the Congo is going to make Congo the center of a struggle to free the whole of Africa. People begin to read all these clear positions, and imperialists believe if you allow him opportunity to do that, he will implement those decisions. So he shouldn't be allowed to do that. That's really, you know, that's really clear to the imperialists. They say this is not the guy who should be in power here. So it's that class struggle between the African workers and poor peasants, between the African nation, between the African people, against parasitic capitalism, against the imperialist bourgeoisie, and also between the collaborators of the imperialists in the Congo itself. Not just in the Congo itself. Like if you go across Brazzaville, you have Yulu, a bishop, Catholic bishop, vehemently against Lumumba. Because he too recognized the radicalization of the masses in the Congo Kinshasa is just a matter of time before the masses in the Congo Brazzaville unite with the masses in the Congo Kinshasa and begin to struggle against the African petit bourgeoisie. It's very clear to them. So now the imperialism with the African petit bourgeoisie, they agree. But who's going to attack Lumumba first? Remember, Lumumba won the elections. He's the prime minister because he has the majority in the parliament. He has support in the parliament. But he has no army because the struggle was for political independence. He has no army. Not only has no army, his rise between 58, late 58, and 60 hasn't given enough time to build powerful mass movement throughout Congo. And particularly isn't it Kinshasa, where it does not command the majority. Kasavubu commanded the majority. Kasavubu has been leading this organization since the early, I think 50s, 49, early 50s, has tremendous support in the city, in the capital. Kasavubu can shut down the capital at will. Lumumba couldn't do that in the capital. He could do that in the east, in Kisangani, some 1,000 kilometers away from there. So the Belgians made the calculation, it's better now to attack him. Don't give him the time to consolidate his power. So independence on the 30th of June. And on the 4th of July, the Belgian army occupied the city, the port of Matadi, some 300 kilometers away from Kinshasa. And every day the news begin to circulate, the Belgians are taking control of most of the cities. Can you just imagine, independence declared on the 30th of June, and from 4th of July, the Belgian army is in control of city after city, basically neutralizing the population, making sure Lumumba can't function. And on 11th of July, Chombe from Katanga province, who leads a regional organization declared secession. I will even say he didn't even declare secession. The Belgian told him to declare the secession, to secede from Congo. The Belgian wrote a constitution for him. They gave him an army run by the Belgian. So it's not even a secession because the Belgian run the army, the Belgian ran his government, the Belgian gave him the constitution. And in August, there is another person, Kalonji, where the diamond comes from, in the central region, because Chombe is where the copper, the cobalts come from, and Kalonji is where the diamond comes from in the center of Congo. Also declared secession. And Kalonji used to be in the MNC. He used to be in the same organization as Lumumba, a national organization. Now he's leading an ethnic movement. That's the first assault attack on Lumumba. So military occupation, secessions, and then Kasavubu goes on the radio and declares that Lumumba is creating chaos. Everybody can see the chaos being created by the Belgian army, who has no respect for the so-called independence. And Chombe and Kalonji, who are the tools, the pawns, who declared secessions of their provinces. Kasavubu does not attack them because Kasavubu himself believes in secession. He's a federalist. In the context of Congo, usually in Africa, when you hear someone saying he's a federalist, it's someone who wants the provinces to be almost autonomous to the central government so they can have their own power. These are the people who are opposed to unity of Africa within the colonial borders and of course within Africa itself. So that's what basically we have. So Kasavubu does a coup. It's a constitutional coup. On the 5th of September, he declared Lumumba is no longer the prime minister, in violation of the constitution, of course. But it does not work. Lumumba is so popular, and the parliament still support Lumumba. And on the 14th of September, the CIA asked Mobutu. Mobutu used to be a member of the MNC, Lumumba's organization, to do a military coup. And it's that coup that basically broke down Lumumba's government, overthrew Lumumba's government, put Lumumba under arrest, and so on. And before the coup, I have to mention one more thing. After Chombe declared secession in July, in August, Lumumba appealed to the UN. And that's a really important point. One reality in the 60s was that every colony, every struggle against colonialism or a struggle for political independence was against the colonizer, the one who colonized you. If you're in Nigeria, you're fighting the French. If you're in Congo, you're fighting the Belgian. If you're in Ghana, you're fighting the British. But the world has already changed with the end of so-called Second World War between the bandits. The United States has emerged as a key leader of the Western Bloc or the White Power Bloc. And the Soviet Union as a contender or a competitor with the Soviet bloc or what used to be called as the Communist bloc. Which means that the United States was the key element in maintaining this international parasitic capitalist world order. So if you fought the Belgian, you're also fighting the United States. If you fought the French, you're only fighting the United States. But the United States wanted a part of the colonial bounty in every place in Africa. So what they start saying, they want Africa no economic independence, which meant you're still a colony. So you got to remember, colonization means you are under domination for economic. Was instrumental in overthrowing Patrice Lumumba. Lumumba was focusing on fighting the Belgian, but it was the United States that provided a helicopter that did the chase from Kinshasa to Kasai, where Lumumba was captured. Without the CIA help, the Belgian colonizers would not have been able to catch Lumumba. That's really important. So the CIA provided the money, the logistics to Mobutu to bribe the soldiers, to buy off the soldiers. That's really important. The United States played that key role. So just to conclude here, imperialism succeeded in overthrowing Patrice Lumumba. And the UN that Lumumba called to come to the rescue was nothing but a continuity of white power with that collective face that the UN, the United Nations for everybody, wasn't. It was the United States in a UN form. And the United States, of course, used the UN to do anything they could to make sure Lumumba does not go back to power. The UN gave cover, protection to every sellout in the Congo except to Lumumba. The UN could have stopped the assassination of Lumumba. They could have stopped Mobutu soldiers from hunting down Lumumba. Even when he was arrested in the Kasai, the UN soldiers were not far. What is worse, the African soldiers in the UN were not under the service of Lumumba. They didn't take orders from Lumumba. They took orders from their white generals. Even the soldiers from Ghana didn't take orders from Lumumba. Lumumba was shocked to see that the head of a military from Ghana was a British guy, General Alexander. And that's really important for us to draw these lessons. You know, that Lumumba was a victim of the leadership provided by Pan-Africanism, because Nkrumah was the leader. And Nkrumah himself, 5 years later, will be overthrown by the same forces who overthrew Patrice Lumumba in the Congo. Because Pan-Africanism is a reform of colonialism. That's how Dubois and Padmore articulated that. That's how the strategy of non-violence, of parliamentary power, with state power, with overthrowing imperialism, with ending colonial domination, economic domination, all those things were not part of the project. So he didn't arm the masses. He didn't arm Lumumba. He didn't. Basically, as I said in the beginning, Lumumba went to power as a class. He didn't go to power by himself, and that class was clear that this deal, this political power, is for the African petty bourgeoisie. If Lumumba, if you don't want it, then you're not one of us. And that's what they did. If you're for the workers and peasants, you have to complete the struggle. And Nkrumah, that was the same. That's why Nkrumah also could not succeed when he tried to build the OAU, the Organization for African Unity. He couldn't succeed because the African petty bourgeoisie was not for overthrowing colonialism at its foundation, destroying the economic basis, destroying the state power of imperialists. The African petty bourgeoisie was not for that. Even where the Africans took weapons, like in Angola, in Zimbabwe, but they used it to negotiate power, political power. And if you look at today, all over Africa, all the major companies, all the big companies which control our oil, our minerals, everything, over 65% are owned by imperialist corporations. Angola, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Congo, everywhere. And this is an indication that colonialism didn't die. It's a forced decolonization. It's a complete decolonization. We still the object. Maybe the African petty bourgeoisie consider itself now the subject of a history, but we know that Africa is dominated by imperialism. So this is basically what you can see as the background, basically, to understand the struggle of Patrice Lumumba, why he was killed, and where do we go from there? Because we are not here to talk about Patrice Lumumba as a piece of history with no discussion on what we do now. Where do we go? Because Lumumba died, Nkrumah died, you know, all the great leaders died. But what we do now, because clearly Africa is dominated, Africa is colonized, African nation is colonized. Black people ain't free anyway. That's a reality. And that's why African internationalism is so significant, so important. Because we recognize we are one people. We recognize our struggle is not for reform of parasitic capitalism. We can't reform the domination of Africa. We are not opposed to reforms as long as it gets us closer to our goals. But our main goal is that this system, born at our expense, this system that enslaved Africa, this system that denies us of all our rights to live as a free people, must go. So we have to develop from where Lumumba left off. So that's what African internationalism has done. To be a Lumumbaist today, to believe in Lumumba today, you go believe in a revolution. Because Lumumba decided to leave the capital to go to the east of Congo to reorganize. But to do what? The only thing he could have done is revolution. But what type of revolution? The problem is Lumumba just began working with other African leaders. The leaders of Cameroon were in the Congo. The leaders of Angola came to the Congo. The leaders of Mozambique, all these African places came to Congo in a brief period Lumumba was in power. Fandom came to Congo, which is an indication of international character of the struggle Lumumba was involved in. He recognized clearly the role of Congo is to promote, to unite, to forward the struggle for the liberation for all black people. Because I see in the Congo, people call themselves Lumumbists and being in the government of Joseph Kabila, in neocolonial government, when what characterizes Lumumba is no compromise whatsoever with neocolonialism. He preferred to die than to have to compromise with neocolonialism. He refused that. He recognized for what he was. So you can't believe in Lumumba and be in that neocolonial government. That's really important. So to go forward, we have to be part of African internationalism. That's what we talk about the African Socialist Party. We're not just here to talk and do a study, but we're here to say what type of organization we need. We need an organization of African workers and the poor peasant that is not led by the African petty bourgeoisie, and which recognizes the oneness of African struggle. And that's why all the lessons of our past struggle are important. That's why the revolution of Haiti is important. That's really fundamental, because we have to be able to build a struggle to recognize that all Africans can participate and forward that same struggle, particularly where we have the opportunity to win. And today, the situation in the Congo is volatile. Today, people are open to new ideas. Today, people are open up to new forms of struggle. Today, the name of Lumumba is back in the mix. They kept it in the dark for so long. They say all nonsense against Lumumba. They even blame Lumumba for the mess there in the Congo. They say it was his fault that Congo is in the mess. He should have waited. But that's not true. It was the imperialists who were in a hurry to kill him. Over Lumumba told them, I will not confiscate the properties of some of the businesses as long as they work for the welfare of people in the Congo. But they were in a hurry to kill him. It was the African petty bourgeoisie that was in a hurry to kill Patrice Lumumba. And they stayed in power for 32 years. Now, if you include Kabila's government, you're talking of for nearly 60 years in power. They have all the time to transform the conditions for people. They haven't. People are poorer, done during colonialism era. It's quite clear. It's quite clear. And before I start, there are a lot of things to go through, but I'm told I have only done 1 hour. So I just want to touch on one thing that I can't miss to do. Today, the world economy depends on certain key minerals. Lithium is one of them, and the Congo has a large reserve of lithium. You know, the president of Bolivia has been overthrown, and one of the reasons is to control the lithium that is needed in electronic gadgets, you know, smartphone and things like that. You need cobalt. You can't talk about green economy or green revolution, clean energy, without talking about cobalt. But a third of the cobalt in the Congo is produced by children. We don't even go to school. We don't have even the right to have 2 meals. I'm not even talking about 3 meals. Children, you know, by the age of 10, never been on a bus, never been in a house with electricity. You go, children would die almost every day. Landslide, rock slide happening every day. And a third of the production of cobalt comes from them. And then you have, of course, coltan that is needed for the minerals, for the smartphone and other sophisticated electronic equipments. Imperialism has decided some of the minerals in the Congo, coltan is one of them, gold, there are others, diamond and tin, will be sold through Uganda, through Rwanda. That's the new configuration imperialism is trying to impose. You have to bear in mind, imperialism has been working on it for a while. They want to break down Congo, split into many countries. And the plan is to get part of the eastern part, known as Kivu, where the coltan is, attached to Rwanda. So today, Rwanda does not have coltan, but export coltan. In fact, Rwanda now exports more coltan than Congo. That's a decision of imperialism. So is Uganda with gold coming from the province of Upper Congo. Most of it goes through Uganda. And Uganda and Rwanda have been instrumental in overthrowing Mobutu's regime to impose Laurent Desire Kabila. You remember that? And Laurent Desire Kabila only stayed in power for 2 years because he changed his mind. He could not agree with the deal he made with the Clinton and Kagame, the president of Rwanda, and Museveni in Uganda. They assassinated him and they imposed the so-called Joseph Kabila in power. Basically what I'm trying to say, that today imperialism loots Congo 2 ways, directly and indirectly. Indirectly in the sense that you can't be in power in the Congo if you don't show allegiance to the agreement that Rwanda and Uganda also must have access to the Congo resources. And worse than that, Rwanda has been given a role also to carry out repression in the region. And the repression in the Congo is a repression against the workers. Workers produce coltan, tin and other minerals at a gunpoint. Women are raped regularly. We're talking about millions of women being raped. We're talking of 10 million people being killed since 1994. And nobody talks about it. Because that is a decision of imperialist bourgeoisie, the United States, the British, the French, the Germans. There is Ebola, where there is most of violence, oppression of the workers, where they kill people every day with machetes. All of a sudden, Ebola also is there. And this Ebola doesn't go away. And I read an article from BBC, they're saying Ebola now is the norm. Basically, Ebola is in Africa, in the Congo state. That's the quintessence in the Congo. Also, hospital destroyed, crops destroyed, water destroyed. That's what the army of Kagame is carrying out. But Kagame has been rewarded. He's been allowed to have access to some capital because the budget of Rwanda, half of it comes from so-called donors from imperialist countries. And also the service is offering to imperialism through the looting of Congo to build Kigali for tourists and also for white people who need to go to Africa. They need to meet certain standards. And the imperialist press promote that day and night. They promote that day and night. And we have increasingly Africans being seduced by that. They're saying, of course, Kagame is bad. He's a murderer, things like that. He kills people, but at least he's building Kigali. So I know Pan-Africanists particularly, who are promoting Rwanda, promoting particularly the regime of Kagame. Kagame is the Mobutu of today in an era of neocolonialism in crisis. And what we need to do, we need to engage in a revolutionary struggle, join the African People's Socialist Party, because we believe the struggle for revolution in Congo is the struggle for revolution in Rwanda, in Uganda, throughout Africa. Particularly the struggle in that region they call Central Africa or Great Lake region. The workers, the spoon soldiers will have to turn the guns on their generals, colonels, sent by Kagame or Museveni or Kabila or Tshisekedi to kill the people. The African Petty Bourgeoisie is enemy to all of us. And we should do anything we can to deepen the education of African people everywhere in the Congo, Rwanda, Uganda, that we have a common enemy. There is no contradiction amongst the masses. We are workers and poor peasants, enemies of the African Petty Bourgeoisie. So down with the African Petty Bourgeoisie, not just in the Congo, but in Rwanda, in Uganda, all over Africa, forward the African Revolution. That's the way you can promote Patrice Lumumba. That's how you can carry on the legacy of Patrice Lumumba, only through revolution. And join. If you want to know where you can join the APSP, you go to the website, apsp.org. That's in English. And then you can take it from there, or you can write to us on Facebook here. If you don't speak English, we will follow up with you. And I'm told that I will have exceeded my time. So I don't know if there were any comments, if you want to discuss anything, the more than welcome. There's no comments? There is no comments? There is no question from anyone? From the Facebook, there's nothing. Or from, okay. Alright. Okay, so, Uhuru, comrades and brothers and sisters, this is the first study we have done. And we're looking at our plans, how we can generalize these studies. Because we want to make sure we don't just carry the studies in French, but we're going to study in all languages we have, so everyone has access to the right information. Before we close it, tomorrow there is a demonstration outside Excel. The rallying point where we're going to meet is going to be at 12 at Cannington Station. That's where we're going to be. So if you're going to be at Cannington Station 12, we're going to depart from there. Felix Tshisekedi is in London, and we recognize he's another agent of imperialism. He has surrendered to Kagame. He has surrendered to Kabila, with 10 million Africans killed. Any legitimate government there has to be a government of justice, of end of impunity. It has to be a government that fights for a new state, people's state, a state where the workers can get justice. It has to be, that's the beginning. And the African People's Bourgeoisie has to be removed from power. And so Tshisekedi is not one of us. Definitely is not. It's the African People's Bourgeoisie. He has to unite with the counter-insurgency of the United States in the Congo. As I say, he has surrendered to Kabila and to Paul Kagame. So, just going to end here by saying one Africa, one nation, Uhuru to everyone.
Uhuru.
Israel to
Africa.